If you're planning a trip to the most magical place on earth, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for my interview with Katie, our Travel Lemming Orlando rider, who worked as a Disney World cast member for 12 years. It's really fascinating. She tells me all sorts of practical tips, how to save money at Disney World, how to spend less time in line. And we also talk about some of the more interesting behind the scenes that goes on. Really lots of interesting tidbits. She used to be one of the drivers in the Kilimanjaro safari ride at Animal Kingdom. She also worked with some of the animals there. So if you're planning a trip to Disney World, this podcast is really going to make your trip a lot better. And even if you're not interested in going to Disney World, we talk a bit about that and about the folks who, my first question to her is, what would you say to a Disney World skeptic? So I think it's interesting whether you're a Disney fan or you're a Disney skeptic. I think that this podcast really would help you to understand what it is that some people find so special about Disney World. So we're going to have most of the podcast focus just on that interview with Katie, because I recorded that earlier this week. We had a very long, meaty, substantive interview. But first, I want to introduce my co-host, Betty Hurd. Betty, how are you doing today?
I am doing just lovely, Nate, and I'm so excited to hear about Disney World. I know for myself, I am a bit of a Disney skeptic. My family never really took us to Disneyland as a kid. I think I went one time when I was really little. So I've never been myself. I'm excited to hear everything that Katie has to share about it and maybe change my own perspective about it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating interview. So we've decided to really set aside the vast majority of this podcast just for that interview. We've only got one other segment for you today, and that's, of course, what's new in travel. So, Betty, what's new in travel?
Well, my very first subject today is that Helsinki was named the world's most sustainable travel destination. So, this is rated by the Global Destination Sustainability Index. It measures sustainability with more than 70 indicators in four main categories. So, these categories are destination management, social performance, supplier performance, and environmental performance. Now, I don't know exactly what all of those mean on a deeper level, but Helsinki got first place in all of these categories when compared to over 100 countries around the world. So they said that they're focusing on reducing emissions with low emission transport, encouraging travelers and locals to walk, bike, get around the city with public transportation, which has always been a really major low emissions option. They're also going to be carbon neutral by 2030. That's the goal. And lots of renewable energy and other sustainability projects. So I would love to hear what people think of this. What does sustainability mean to you when it comes to travel? Is that a big factor in where you decide to go? Because for me personally, it didn't used to be such a big deal that I would think about where I'm going and like, oh, is this a sustainable destination? But this apparently they're getting a lot of attention and a lot of people who appreciate that so much and want to go there because of this. What do you think of that, Nate?
Sustainability is definitely a big trend in travel. I'm going to the World Travel Market in London next week. And just looking at the agenda, you can see that clearly it's high on the minds of a lot of brands and destinations that are trying to position themselves as, hey, we're a responsible place to travel. So maybe we could have a whole episode actually about travel and about sustainability. It is a popular topic. But I want to say, by the way, Helsinki, underrated destination. If you haven't been, highly recommend it.
I have not been, but it's definitely on the list now. And for my next new topic, 50 well preserved Viking skeletons were discovered in Denmark. And this was really interesting to me. And I know that we're past Halloween already, but I'm still in the spooky mood. But I guess that these archaeologists found this burial ground with very, very well preserved skeletons, which I guess they were saying sometimes they'll only find like a handful of teeth, but these were entire bodies of men, women, and children from the Viking age, which, according to them, this ran from 793 to 1066 AD. So it's a really, really old skeletons that I guess because of the way that the soil chemistry works in this part of Denmark, they were super well preserved. So it's going to shed light on community workings, trade routes, social patterns, migration patterns, and more, which is super, super interesting.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Okay, my first story. So, on the Disney theme, according to The Wrap, they say that the Walt Disney Company is poised to announce a major AI initiative that will transform its creative output. And Basically, supposedly Disney is going to announce that they're going to start using AI in creating their movies and also in some unclear experiences within the Disney World parks. And so, if you listen to our last podcast, we talked about how Germany has now hired an AI influencer named Emma to promote Germany. AI is definitely one of the big trends right now. I don't know how I feel about Disney movies being written by AI. I'm not sure what Walt Disney would think of that. On the one hand, he was very future forward. Like Epcot is all about the future and all about technology, but I just something about it doesn't feel sit right with me. What do you think?
Well, it wasn't a massive part of the writer's strike all about how AI is not allowed in movie writing scripts or TV shows, anything. I mean, I don't know all the details of the writer's strike, but I felt that was like a massive no-no, especially for a company as big as Disney. I would think that they would be really against that.
Yeah, I think, my personal opinion is that most of these companies see AI and they see a way to cut labor costs, which is my opinion. But I don't know. Maybe it could be interesting. Let us know in the comments if you would watch an AI Disney movie. My next story is also about Disney and is relates to something that I talk about more in depth in the interview with Katie, which is that Disney has announced a new Lightning Lane. So Lightning Lane is basically the skip the line pass system at Disney World. So you can pay to skip the line. Katie and I go into detail about the different types of passes and when to use them and whether they have value. There were previously two different Lightning Lanes. And then recently they announced an additional one called the Premier Pass. And get this, it can cost up to $449 plus tax per person, depending on the park and depending on the day. Now, what do you get for that? You get the ability to skip the line at every single ride at Disney World, which the other ones don't offer. But for a family of four, is that worth $2,000? I don't know. I get into it with Katie quite in depth there, but boy, if that isn't quite the price tag, huh?
I can't even imagine. I mean, maybe if I had a ton of money, all the money in the world, that wouldn't mean anything to me. But for me, I mean, that's rent. So I just can't imagine having to pay. I mean, that's not even including the taxes. It's going to be upwards of $500 to skip the lines. And, with each passing year, I become more and more like my father. I don't like crowds. I don't like waiting in line. And I don't like being around a bunch of little kids. So I'm excited to hear this interview because you guys are going to have your work cut out for you to convince me why this is worth it, and the ways to navigate Disney in a way that isn't so expensive and stressful.
Yeah, so I wanted to do this interview early with Katie because I was just at Disney World last month and I went to all four parks for the first time in about 10 years. And I got to use Katie's guides in order to go. And I also used a bunch of other guides and YouTube videos to try to plan because you really need to plan for Disney World. If you don't, other people are planning and you're going to be spending your time in line. You're not going to get the good reservations. You're not going to go to the good shows and you're going to be worse off for it. Her guides are so fantastic. There's a lot of Disney content out there, but I'm obviously biased because I'm the owner of Travel Lemming, but I'm telling you, like her guides saved us so much trouble and really helped us to navigate the park and to save money. So she gets into lots of really interesting tips in this interview. I think Disney World was a lot of fun. I I convinced Clara. Clara went into it on the first day and she wasn't excited at all about Disney World. And then after about 3 rides, she couldn't wait to go
Having a
on to the next
blast.
one. Yeah, and it's true that the Magic Kingdom is very kid-oriented, but there are more adult-oriented parks like Epcot, like Hollywood Studios that have things that it's not all just young kids. And actually, a lot of the rides have height limitations. So, it's teenagers and above on quite a few of them. So I think, Disney World is maybe not everything at Disney World is for everybody, but it's meant to have something for everybody. It is, however, very expensive. And so one of the things that we really talk about a lot is how to save money at Disney World. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it right off to that interview where we get right into it with Katie and we'll talk all about Disney World. And then we'll go ahead and come back here and send you off for the next one. So here we go.
Take it away.
Okay, and for our next segment, I'm happy to have here with us Katie Neufeld, who is Travel Lemming's Disney World freelance writer based out of Orlando. Katie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Good. Happy to have you here. Happy to talk about Disney World. For listeners who don't know, Katie is our Disney World and Orlando expert. She's got tons of guides to Orlando, to Disney World. She worked at Disney World. She's a former cast member, still a season pass holder, visits all the time. If you are planning a trip to Disney World, you're going to want to listen to this interview because we're really going to help get all of Katie's knowledge, hopefully get you some helpful tips that will help you have a better trip. But even if Disney World isn't the kind of place that you want to go, you want to go ahead and listen because I'm going to talk to Katie about, you know, why maybe you might rethink your position on Disney World or perhaps help you to understand sort of what the appeal is. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I want to go ahead and tell the listeners a bit about Katie and give them a bit of an introduction. So Katie, do you want to go ahead and just tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about your background, and maybe about, how you got started working at Disney World?
Sure. I grew up here in Orlando. So I've been going to the parks for as long as I can remember, both Disney, the Universal Orlando parks, SeaWorld, pretty much everything that there is to do in Orlando. I have done it at some point. I actually started working at Disney at 17, right before my senior year of high school. I started working as a seasonal lifeguard. And seasonal just means I really didn't have a set schedule and I was able to work on weekends and during school breaks. So it was nice to be able to do that throughout college. Coming back and already being connected to the company was awesome.
And you were a lifeguard at like one of the water parks or?
I was a lifeguard at some of the resorts. So I worked at the Saratoga Springs Resort, Old Key West Resort, and then Port Orleans.
And so for folks who haven't been to Disney World, in addition to the theme parks, there are how many Disney resorts? Like a dozen or more of them.
Over 30 at this point.
Yeah. And they're all different brands, different themes, and they're all kind of part of the broader property. So it's more than just the four main parks. Okay, so you work as a lifeguard, and then what was your next sort of position there?
So I graduated with my degree in zoology with the goal of working as a zookeeper, and I was able to transfer over to Disney's Animal Kingdom, which for people who don't know is basically a theme park and a zoo had a baby, and there's Animal Kingdom.
It's not a zoo.
It's not a zoo. That's the old marketing phrase, but I like to say it's one of the best zoos. I think it's fantastic. I was able to drive the Kilimanjaro safari trucks, which is probably the most iconic attraction at that park. And then I moved into the Animal Nutrition Center, which is a very fancy restaurant making food for all the animals that live at Disney World. And then finally, I got my dream job as a zookeeper at Disney.
Super cool. So Kilimanjaro Safari. Okay, so that is such a cool ride. I don't know if there's any other ride like it in the world. It's a safari, like you're going through this. So I just visited Disney World about a month and a half ago. Katie and I had dinner and went through the Kilimanjaro Safari ride. And I've been on real safaris out in the Masai Mara, and I have to say that they did about as good as possible trying to kind of recreate that. You get in a vehicle that's actually a proper vehicle with a guide, and you're driving through, and there are animals like really close to you. At one point, a rhino came within a few meters of our vehicle. So what would describe that ride for sort of readers and why it's so special?
Yeah. So, number one, it's a huge, huge attraction. The entire Magic Kingdom theme park can actually fit inside the Kilimanjaro Safari attraction, which just goes to show how big it is. It ends up being about a 22-minute ride on these big safari trucks. And yes, the animals are free roaming around. It is very common to get stuck in what they like to call a giraffic jam because the giraffes are particularly good at stopping in the middle of the road and blocking the trucks. But you go through 3 or 4 different ecosystems, and every safari is different because the animals have that free will to come and go as they please. They might be hiding under a tree taking a nap, or they want to be front and center and showing off for everyone.
Yeah, it's a really special ride, and I think one of the things that makes Disney World special. And then, so after Kilimanjaro, so you were driving those trucks, or?
Yes, driving, talking, giving the whole spiel, and showing off all the animals.
That's incredible. I was really impressed by our guide when we do it because, I mean, those trucks are huge. They must have, what, 20, 25 people in them, maybe a bit more.
45, actually.
They're balancing so much because everybody gets in the ride. They're talking, being a tour guide, but they're also driving through this, field with animals everywhere. That's really quite the adventure. Very cool. Any other particular memories or things that come to mind from that time?
As a safari driver, probably the most fun thing was driving in the rain. I know I have it on my guides on Travel Lemming, and you'll see a lot of people talk about if it starts raining while you're at Animal Kingdom, run to the safari. The animals just get so fun and frisky, and the elephants love to go swimming in the rain. It is just, you see some of the best animal behaviors and just beautiful scenes when it's raining on the safari.
Oh, that's super cool. And then after that, so you said you helped prepared food. Food was your next job?
Yeah, back in the backstage areas at Animal Kingdom, they have basically a full commercial kitchen, and that's where all the food gets brought in and then prepared for every single animal that lives at Animal Kingdom, and also for some of the animals that live over at the Seas, which is a huge aquarium inside Epcot. So I don't remember the exact tonnage of food, but let's just say it's a lot, and a full semi refrigerated semi truck would bring in that food a couple times a week.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And so then after that, you start working at the animals directly. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that was my dream job from the time that I was a small kid. And I especially wanted to work at Disney because visiting Animal Kingdom was so special to me when I was a kid and growing up here. And I've always loved working with large animals. My first experience was actually working with elephants while I was in college. So I knew I wanted to be on what is called the Aturi Forest team, which is the beginning of the safari. So they have black rhinos, bongo and kudu, a couple different types of antelope, copy, hippos, and crocodiles. So it's a very fun group of animals to get to work with. And like I said, it was absolutely my dream job.
And what were you doing day to day? Like, what does that even look like?
A lot of cleaning. The day usually started, it was a little different. Our areas were kind of split up, so you weren't taking care of all the animals every single day. We had a large team of keepers that were doing that work all together, but it was feeding, cleaning. If anybody needed medications, we would do training for different behaviors to help the animals participate in their medical care. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun.
Super cool. Awesome. And so how long were you at Disney World?
All together, I was at Disney World for 12 years.
Very cool. So lots of helpful knowledge there. And in addition to Animal Kingdom, you've been to the other three parks a ton of time and you're a pass holder and all that. Is Animal Kingdom your favorite park or something else to throw into it?
I always say that Animal Kingdom is my favorite park, but Epcot is probably the park I go to the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And why Epcot?
Epcot is our favorite place to stop in for just a couple of hours because there are so many food and drink options when you don't really want to sit down for a full meal. But, we're locals. We can just pop in when we want to, grab a drink and walk around.
You just walk around the international showcase and have a drink from
Yeah.
Germany or Japan or wherever you want. It's they've got Epcot has this like huge lake and then there's the ride area sort of by the main entrance. And then below it, you've got this giant lake with all these different country setups around it. And each one of them has restaurants and foods. And some of them have attractions like the Ratatouille ride is in the France section and all of that. Super cool. Okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about Disney World generally. So some of our listeners maybe have never been to Disney World, maybe never really had the desire to go to Disney World. Obviously there are maybe others who are listening who are regulars and go all the time like you. But let's go ahead and talk to those folks who Disney World hasn't been on their radar. Maybe they prefer to have their travel be more traditional trips or something. And, some people maybe struggle to understand the appeal of Disney World. So maybe you could help me understand, like to somebody who's a bit of a skeptic about Disney World or who maybe thinks it's not for them, like just help them understand what is the attraction, what makes Disney World so special and why are so many people drawn to it?
Sure. And first off, there is a vacation for everyone. Not everybody has to enjoy going to the same places, and that's totally fine. We all have what makes us happy. The reason that I think Disney World is particularly great, and this goes for Disneyland, Universal Orlando, all of these theme park, larger resort destinations, is that everybody is stepping away from real life. If I travel to Oslo, I am going to the museums and seeing the sights, but everyone else around me is just going through their daily life. So when you go to a place like Disney World, nobody's working, nobody's in their daily life. Everybody is just there to have a good time, to create memories with their family, their friends, whoever they took that trip with. And there is something for everyone. Of course, if you want attractions and those thrill rides, all of the parks have those. You can meet your favorite characters from Disney movies, especially for families with little kids. They love being able to see those characters that they've only ever seen on a TV before. And for foodies, you have hundreds of restaurants, not just at Disney, but in the greater Orlando
I
area.
like how you put it. It's everybody who is around there is also on vacation. So you're detached from the problems of the real world because everything is meant to entertain you and it is meant to be this vacation that you're stepping into. If the word vacation could be a place, it would be Disney World. And so having just gone, Clara was a bit of a skeptic before we went and she was kind of like not that excited for it. And within a couple hours on the first day, all she wanted to do was just keep going back and go to more rides because it is so much fun. So I would say if you've never been, don't knock it until you try it. And there definitely is a lot there. And also, by the way, it's not just for kids either. Like we don't have children. We didn't go with children. We still had a ton of fun, particularly at a couple of the parks. Like I think probably Hollywood Studios and Epcot are probably the most adult oriented parks. But all of them have rides that are really interesting. So you've over the course of your time working at Disney World, over the course of the years living in Orlando, like Disney World's gone through a lot of changes over the world. It's been a while since a new park has opened, but they obviously opened Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. They've opened a bunch of new rides and sort of lands. And there have just also been a ton of other changes to the way that Disney World works over the years. I've gone down this rabbit hole of watching all these YouTube videos before our visit to understand some of that history. So I just love to hear from your perspective. How has Disney World changed over the years?
Yeah, so the parks themselves, I would say there's been a huge swing into including intellectual property. So Disney, under that umbrella, includes ESPN, Star Wars, Marvel, of course, all the Disney and Pixar films. So they have a ton of this intellectual property to choose from, and they really love to tie that into their theme parks. So you don't see as many original attractions as you did when Magic Kingdom and Epcot first opened. For example, the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, those were original rides that the Imagineers just thought of. The rides are still awesome, don't get me wrong, but now there's almost always a tie in with one of those Disney characters or brands, which is really fun because, like Star Wars fans, how cool is it that this, fandom that has been around for so long and has so many different characters and movies and books and all these different things connected to it, they can go live in Star Wars. They can walk through it and have a drink of blue milk and ride on, sorry, I'm not a Star Wars fan, the Millennium Falcon. That's what it is.
Smuggler's Run.
Smuggler's Run. Yep.
Yeah, Smuggler's Run is a game style simulator ride. You go in and there's two pilots and then the people in the back are gunners. We rode it 3 or 4 times and every single time we were a pilot, we never got to be a gunner. And I was awful as a pilot because the first time I crashed the whole thing and I felt, you get like a score at the end. So it's very fun that particular ride is. But what do they call the land where Star Wars is?
Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge. All of Galaxy's Edge is themed like Star Wars, and it's themed at a degree that's even higher than all of the other lands. Like it's near the Toy Story land, and that's themed
Mhm.
like Toy Story, but Galaxy's Edge takes it to another level. You understand why they would do that because, of course, Disney has their movie business to promote. Although I was interested to find out that they still primarily earn revenue from theme parks. Like they still make more from that than they do from the movie. But you're right. Like some of those older rides don't necessarily have that tie-in to one of the movies or to one of the Disney characters. Pirates of the Caribbean, am I correct that the ride actually preceded the movie?
Yeah, the ride inspired the original movie, and then obviously it turned into the whole series together. But the ride did come first.
Let's go ahead and talk a bit about just like some trip planning for folks who are planning a trip to Disney World. What do you need to know? All of the basics. Now, we're not going to have time to get deep into every single thing, and maybe we'll have Katie back on. If you're listening to this and there's something that we didn't get to cover, let us know in the comments. We'll have Katie back on and we'll have a whole other section where we could do a deep dive into a particular park or into a particular aspect of Disney World. But let us know what's interesting to you. And then at the end, we'll do a brief section where we'll talk about some of the latest news and what's going on at Disney World. But first, let's talk a bit about, put yourselves in the shoes, Katie, of someone who has decided that they want to go to Disney World, but they're just starting off thinking about how to plan a trip. And, I've seen stats where the average person who is planning their trip to Disney World plans way in advance. I know my sister will plan for literally 2 years in advance before they make a trip. out there and she will think about every single aspect of it and plan her itinerary to a T. Having just gone, I was not a planner and I just sort of showed up. And I realized very quickly that by not planning, you have to deal with wait times and moving around the park. And now with the fast passes, like all this different stuff, it can be a bit overwhelming. And where do you eat and parking and getting around and where do you stay in relation to that? If you're someone who's coming at this and wanting to go to Disney World, you dive in and you're quickly like overwhelmed with all that information. What would you say? Like how would you go about planning that trip?
So, first off, yes, I think planning ahead, planning in advance is the best thing that you can do. There is so much great content. Obviously, on Travel Lemming, we have a bunch, but there's also great YouTubers. Disney's website has a host of information. There, like we said, there are over 30 hotels to choose from if you want to stay at a Disney hotel. There are 4 theme parks, 2 water parks. You have Disney Springs, you have the boardwalk. There are so many things that it can very quickly become overwhelming. So the farther in advance that you begin planning, the easier it's going to be as you can narrow down what you want to do and what's important to you. Another thing that I really recommend for first timers or people who maybe just don't come that frequently is to use an authorized Disney vacation planner. So these are travel agencies that partner with Disney. Their agents have been trained, they fully understand the Disney bubble and all of the things that go with it. And they're also the most up to date on current promotions, offers, low season, high season, all of that information, and kind of help guide you in the right direction if you're not sure when to go or which hotel would be best for your family, what day to go to what parks, things like that.
And yeah, that's very helpful. So on that, what are your thoughts on which months or which times folks should go?
It's such a nuanced answer because I always like to say the best time to go is weekdays when kids are in school. But if those are your kids that are in school, it can be hard to take them out for a family vacation. I understand that. So sometimes you have to travel during school holidays or on weekends and things like that. So the times of year that I find are either a little cheaper or have lesser crowds is late January, sometimes a little bit into February, President's Day. And I think some of the northern US has like a week off of school in February. We don't have that in Florida, so that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I also really like between spring break and summer vacation. So late April, early May, and then September. This past September, the parks were dead. It was so wonderful. There were these random days where everything was a walk on and you don't really know when it's going to happen. It's kind of, what do they say, lightning in a bottle. But when it does happen, it makes for a really, really fun day at the parks.
And a walk on is where there's no line or the line is very minimal and you just go and you're immediately on. And those are typically, I mean, the typical advice that folks says either go first thing at what they call rope drop when they open the park and then the lines will be less. Another is a lot of the resorts you get early entry, like a half hour early or something.
Yeah, if you are staying at any of the Disney resorts, and that also includes the Swan and Dolphin properties, which are Marriott hotels that are on the Disney property. And I believe the Four Seasons and Shades of Green are the
Yeah.
other 2 resorts that access that. And you can get into all 4 of the theme parks 30 minutes before park opening. So even with all of the Disney hotel guests able to access that, not everybody wants to get up early. Not everyone is going to a park every day. So you can get on to some of the rides very quickly.
Yeah. And certainly lines are one of the big challenges. You're right in September. So that's when we were there. And it was great. We did not spend a lot of time in line. I think Navi River Journey was the only time when I found myself feeling like I was in a line that was like way too long. And between that and using the lightning lane system, which we should talk about a bit, we were able to navigate the lines even as a last minute planner. But I could definitely see like the day that we went to the Magic Kingdom, it was quite busy. It was the busiest of the day. And you could definitely see how that becomes more of a problem at peak seasons. So
Mhm.
even if you've got to go, it's summer or in, Christmas holidays are probably one of the busier times. If that's when you have to go, you say go anyway because Disney's so wonderful. How do you approach addressing the lines and someone who's worried about just spending all of their time waiting around?
Yeah, so maybe except for Hollywood Studios, every park has attractions that generally don't have long lines, even when the park is very busy. They just have a large capacity, so they can move a lot of people through the attraction in a short amount of time, or they're just not as popular, so some people skip them. So I'd say there's always things to do. Hollywood Studios is the one park that has so many fantastic and popular rides that it just seems like every line is long. So at Hollywood Studios, or if you're visiting any of the parks on a holiday or during a busy season, that's where I would recommend looking into the Lightning Lane passes. Lightning Lane, it was formerly known as Fast Pass, which is essentially a skip the line pass. This used to be a free ticketed system where you would actually go to the front of the attraction, scan your park ticket, and then it would give you a return time to come back and ride. Now it's all digital. It's all through the My Disney Experience app. And there are three different options. There are Lightning Lane single passes, where you will pay for a return time at a specific attraction. And basically, only the most popular 4 or 5 rides are part of the Lightning Lane single pass right now. And that can range anywhere from 15 to like $30 per person.
Per ride. So
And
it's a one ride. So a
per
family
ride.
of 4, you're talking potentially $100. And some of these
Yeah.
rides, like Cosmic Rewind, Guardians of the Galaxy, which is my favorite, is maybe a couple minutes or less.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. It's definitely not cheap. But for some of them, like Cosmic Rewind, there is no standby queue. So you either need a Lightning Lane or you have to do the virtual queue. You wake up at 7
Mhm.
a.m. and kind of try to join this lottery to try to get a spot to go in. So for the Lightning Lane single pass, that applies to which rides?
So that is Avatar Flight of Passage
Good.
at Animal Kingdom, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot, Tron and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at Magic Kingdom, and Rise of the Resistance at Hollywood
So
Studios.
those are really like the big ticket rides. And those can very often have like 2-hour standby lines. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind doesn't even have a standby line. So it's pay to play if you want to not wait in line for those. And now the multi pass, talk a bit about that.
Yeah, I like the multi-pass. I don't like the single pass, the idea of paying just for, like you said, probably a 2-minute ride. For me and my budget, I just can't do it. But
Yeah.
I understand if this is your once in a lifetime trip, why that might be worth it for some people. So the multi-pass, you would purchase 3 to 7 days in advance, 3 if you're not staying at a Disney resort, 7 days in advance if you are staying at a Disney resort. And by purchasing that multi-pass, you will get to choose 3 lightning lanes before you even get to the park that day. So about a week in advance, you can select. So for example, if you're going to Magic Kingdom, you can choose, I want to ride Space Mountain and Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. Those are my 3 rides. And then once you get there that day and you scan in and use your first lightning lane, say at Space Mountain, you can get back on the My Disney Experience app and make another Lightning Lane reservation. So if they're available, you can continue making Lightning Lane reservations for the entirety of the day. Now, of course, if it's busy or, the popular rides, they can sell out. So there is a chance that Lightning Lanes will fill up. All of the reservations will be taken on specific days, but there is that opportunity to guarantee at least 3 Lightning Lanes and potentially more once you get there the day of.
Yeah, we used it when we were there, and we really did like the multi passes. The pricing is dynamic, so it was a little bit more
Mm.
affordable in September because there were fewer people there. It also depends on the park, right? Like the Animal Kingdom one is significantly cheaper than the Magic Kingdom pass.
Yes.
But if you have the park hopper option, where you're hopping between parks, you can only select your 3 from that park. But as soon as you tap in, you could select at another park. So I think one day we were able to get 10 or 11 rides out of the multi pass where you're just cutting the line every single time. And for $20 a piece, I thought that was a pretty good deal. So definitely that one makes sense to me. So what's the
Mhm.
third of the Lightning Lane passes? There's a new one.
So because that wasn't complicated enough,
Yeah.
Disney decided to throw a curveball recently, as of recording, recently announced that in end of October 2024, they're going to be introducing the Lightning Lane Premier Pass.
Mhm.
Now, this is a big ticket item. I believe the cheapest is $130 or $150 for Animal Kingdom, and it goes all the way up to $450 for the Magic Kingdom.
And
Now,
that's per person. And so what do you get for that?
so the great part is you do not have to schedule a single lightning lane. You don't have to look at your phone again the entire day while you are at the park. You can ride each Lightning lane attraction. So anything that's part of the multi-pass or the single pass, you can walk right up at any time, tap your magic band or your park ticket, and just walk right on. No scheduling needed. You can do each attraction one time. So you can't go ride Everest over and over and over and over, but you at least guarantee lightning lane access to every single attraction at that park that day.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you have the money, it's definitely the best way to do it. But boy, that will add up fast, especially if you have multiple people in your party, and especially if you're going to multiple parks. It's definitely nice. So when you're in the lines, there's two lines typically at most rides. There's a standby line, which has a posted wait time, so it'll say at the get go, hey, it's going to be 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it is, and then you have the lightning lane, and then sometimes. Like the one time that we were waiting in a line that felt a little longer, you can see some of the people at the lightning lane. They're just ripping past you in the line. And alternatively, when you have the lightning lane pass and you're ripping past other people, it definitely feels like a lot of that is the case at Disney World, where it's just if you have the money, there's ways that you can experience it, in a better way. And it's expensive to begin with.
Yeah.
Tickets start at $100, but a lot of them are even more expensive than $100. And so even just the base price to get in is already expensive. For a lot of families, going to Disney World is a dream, but the total cost can easily total into, I think the average cost is $4,000 or $5,000 for a family in order to go by the time you add up everything, flights, tickets, hotels, all of that. So budgeting is a major concern for a lot of folks. What would you say to someone who is trying to plan a trip to Disney World, but is on a tight budget?
So there is definitely a way to do Disney at just about any price point. Now, if you are on the tightest budget looking to pinch pennies in every single corner, I don't want to dissuade you from coming to Disney, but it will be a little bit harder and it does lose a little bit of the magic when you don't have any wiggle room whatsoever. So I don't want to say don't come. It can definitely still be done, but I would say this is a good trip that can be done on a budget, but a reasonable budget. So, for example, Disney has different levels of hotel. They have value, their lowest level or budget hotels, moderate, and then deluxe resorts. So, those deluxe resorts are going to be closest to the theme parks. They're going to have the fun transportation like the monorail or the gondola, the Skyliner. Whereas the value resorts, you're going to be taking buses, bare minimum in terms of amenities. There's no table service restaurants, things like that, but you still get that early entry into the parks. You still get complimentary Disney transportation. You still get free parking at your resort, things like that. So those value resorts, I would say on average are about $150 to $225 a night. And those rooms are sleeping 4 to 5 people. Now, are there cheaper hotels in Orlando? Yes, there are. You can probably find places that are $100 or maybe even a little bit less, but a lot of hotels have parking fees. They don't have regular shuttle schedules to get you to the Disney parks, especially if that's only where you're going. So it really is about looking at that balance when picking your hotel, because I think that and the park tickets are going to be your biggest expense.
Okay, so of the value hotels, are there any particular ones that you think people should look at?
So the cheapest are typically the all-star resorts. It's one property split up into 3 resorts, the All-Star Sports, All-Star Music, and All-Star Movies. That's going to be the cheapest option almost as a rule year-round on Disney property. Now, depending on what your budget is, there is also the Pop Century and Art of Animation resorts that are in that value category, and they do connect to the Disney Skyliner, which is a gondola system that takes you to other hotels for dining or recreation. And then they also connect to Hollywood Studios and Epcot.
Okay. So obviously accommodation is beyond
Correct.
park tickets. So you've got to get your tickets, you've got accommodation. And the other big categories of costs are, of course, your flights that you'll have to get there. And then
Correct.
probably after that, it's going to be like food and drink, right? So, which
Yeah.
can get really expensive real quick because these are theme park prices. So, how would you approach as someone who has a family going budgeting for that?
So I would say on average, the quick service restaurants, you're on at a counter grabbing your food, paying for it. Those are typically maybe $10 to $15 for breakfast. And then I'd say $10 to $20 for lunch and dinner at both the hotels and at the theme parks. So that's where I would look at where you can save a little bit of money. Personally, I like to have breakfast in the room instead of paying for a full meal, especially like young kids. If anybody has tried to fight with a toddler about eating breakfast, they just want like a banana and they're ready to take on the day, right?
Right.
So why waste the money on a full big breakfast buffet and things like that?
Yeah. And then so for lunch and dinner, like when you're at the parks, so you have all those quick service ones where you can pick up, and you also have the sit down restaurants, and a lot of those can get quite expensive. What about bringing your own food in or packing stuff?
Yeah, so the nice thing about Disney is you can bring your own food into the parks. You can bring in a soft-sided cooler, so none of those big hard igloo coolers. You can't have big ice bags, but I believe you can bring in ice packs, so, the little cooler packs. And you can bring in whatever you'd like. No alcohol though. That is that is
Right.
the exception. But if you want to make sandwiches, pack something like that, salads, anything that can stay cool. There aren't microwaves, so you're not going to be heating up a full meal, but we always bring snacks with us, which helps again with the toddler who then decides that they're ravenous after having only a banana for breakfast, that
Right.
they need all the snacks. So instead of paying Disney snack prices, we usually bring a few things in our bag ready to go.
Very helpful. Any other budgeting tips or other resources? I know you've got a few guides on the site on how to approach Disney World on a budget.
Yeah, Travel Lemming has all of my best tips for the budget, but really, I would just prioritize what's important to you. If one of the parks doesn't seem exciting, don't go there. Maybe just prioritize the other two parks or things like that. Especially with kids, it can be so hard because you want to do everything and make such a magical experience for them. But tempering the expectation and realizing that you're going to have fun no matter what you're doing, how little or how much you accomplish. It's just about spending time together.
Okay, so let's talk about that then. When you're talking about prioritizing, if you have to choose, let's talk about like your favorite rides, your favorite parks. You said Animal Kingdom has your heart, but you spend the most time at Epcot. Give us your sort of very quick, high level sort of way of breaking down each of the four parks. And then they've also got the water parks and they've got the
Well,
ESPN stuff and all of that.
so we'll start with the OG, the original at Magic Kingdom. This is the everybody park. I think that there truly is something for everybody. You have a couple of more thrill rides, you have tons of stuff for the kids, and because there are so many attractions, I find that there are a lot of short lines. So especially kids have trouble waiting in line. It's you can't ask a 5-year-old to stand in line for an hour for a 1-minute ride. I understand how hard that is. So I like Magic Kingdom for that. And it has that old nostalgia, the original Disney. This is what Walt envisioned when he planned out these theme parks. The best attractions there, Tron, I would say, is very popular. My issue with Tron is it is so short. It feels like a 30-second ride, but it is very cool because you are sitting like you are on a motorcycle. So you are, you know, sitting on the saddle and leaning forward and holding on. So it is a very fun ride, but to me, it's a little too short to be worth the wait time that it usually has. Uh, Peter Pan is another one that has a very long wait time typically, but is not that exciting of a ride. So that's my little tip. Maybe skip Peter Pan just because everybody else is doing it. Doesn't mean you need to also. Haunted Mansion is a classic, and I love Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Okay, so that's Magic Kingdom. So then Hollywood Studios, we talked a bit about that earlier. I mean, it does have a lot of the most popular rides.
Yeah, Hollywood Studios for me, I would say we go there the least just because we have our toddler son who cannot ride a lot of these really cool attractions and it's just too much to handle rider swap, but I am excited for when he's tall enough and we can all go do these together. So we talked about Galaxy's Edge. You have Rise of the Resistance, which is I don't even know how to describe how immersive and engaging this attraction is. It's just stepping into Star Wars, and then Smuggler's Run is a video game and interactive. You and your team are in the Millennium Falcon flying and
Yeah,
helping
that's the
out
one that I crashed as the pilot.
the rebels, right? We're helping the
Yeah.
rebels or the resistance, something
Yeah.
like that. Right next to that is Toy Story with Slinky Dog Dash, which is such a fantastic intro roller coaster for kids who are just tall enough to start trying out those thrill rides. I love Toy Story Mania, which is an arcade shooting game with all the characters from the movies. And then you still have the classics, Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, and the most recent addition, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. For the older Disney fans, you'll remember the Great Movie Ride, which was, a classic for the park, but Minnie and Mickey's is very cute little. It's very similar to Rise of the Resistance in like that it's trackless. Your
Right.
cars just seem to be floating about. I think it's magnets that are keeping everything on track, but it's a very smooth, very fun attraction.
Okay, so Magic Kingdom is geared towards the younger crowd and also just where you'll find the general Disney magic. Everybody can go there.
Yeah.
That's where you have the fireworks show that's famous. And Hollywood Studios, maybe more geared towards adults and a bit sort of more the adventure, maybe competing more with like the Universal resorts. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say it would probably be the closest to the Universal. We don't hit the same level of thrill at
Yeah.
Disney World, but Rock and Roller Coaster is an indoor coaster, very fun.
The only one
And
that goes upside down at Disney World, which,
yeah,
which I did do it, but I hate the upside down stuff. So the Disney rides are definitely a bit less adventurous than, the Six
yeah,
Flags or your Universal ones. I personally like that, but they appeal to a broader range of folks. So Hollywood Studios has,
and-
but it does have those bigger rides. Like obviously, like Rise
yeah.
of the Resistance is a very big ride. Also, a fair bit of shows. I mean, originally Hollywood Studios used to be like an actual movie studios. They don't still film there anymore, though, do they?
No, I don't know if they ever filmed there. They did have animation. So Lilo and Stitch and I believe Mulan were entirely animated from the Orlando office. Most of the animators were out in California at that time, but I believe they also contributed to a number of other movies in the 90s. Hollywood Studios was originally MGM Studios in a partnership that Disney had with MGM. And it is the only theme park that does not have a single opening day attraction anymore. So everything has changed inside the park.
Oh, wow. So that's Hollywood Studios. Now we've got what? Epcot. So you said Epcot's where you spend most of your time.
Yeah, Epcot is definitely geared towards adults, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything for kids to do. There's still lots of fun for kids. For adults, the big appeal is the food and drinks. There are bars everywhere. There are lounges. Disney doesn't like bar lounges everywhere. Tons of restaurants. There are festivals throughout the year. So they have currently going on the Food and Wine Festival. Then it'll go into Festival of the Holidays in late November and December. January, and I believe a little bit of February is Festival of the Arts. And then we go into Flower and Garden Festival. So with each of those festivals comes different decor around the park, different snacks and food stands, and more drinks to try. But for the kids, they have the aquarium, the Seas at Epcot, which has some Finding Nemo theming with it, which I know my son loves to run around in there. And it also has a connected attraction to it as well. And it's currently closed for refurbishment, but it should be opening early next year, is Test Track for the older kids who like something a little more adventurous.
That's when we were like racing cars, basically. I liked that a lot when I was younger. It was closed when we were visiting. I was really sad to see that. Very cool. So talking about the food and the wine and kind of going and, some people will go and just drink their way around Epcot, having a drink at each one of the countries. Is there a particular spot or a particular food or beverage item that you find yourself going back to?
I have a couple of my favorites. In the UK, they have a pear cider. Normally it's Magners. There's a whole background. There's distribution issues right now, but they still have pear cider there at the little beer cart right outside the Rose and Crown pub there in the UK pavilion. And I love limoncello. So I like to grab a little limoncello from what I consider a hidden bar inside the Italy pavilion. So it's called Enoteca Castello and it's kind of tucked in. It looks like it's a merchandise shop, but they have a couple different wines and then limoncello as well.
Very cool. And speaking of food items, there's something called a Dole Whip. We did try one, but explain what that is, folks.
Yeah, so it started as a partnership between Dole, the pineapple company, and Disney. I don't know if it was opening day, but it's been a very long time. And this was originally only in Adventureland in the Magic Kingdom. And it is frozen. I don't even know how. It's not frozen yogurt because it's dairy free, but it's pineapple ice cream, pineapple
but
sorbet.
it's fluffier than a sorbet.
Yeah, it's a better texture. It feels like ice cream, but it's not ice cream. So the original was just with that dull pineapple juice, and that's what it was made of. Now they've expanded it to have I don't even know how many flavors. And typically with every festival or holiday season, there will be new flavors. Sometimes they'll serve it in a waffle cone, or you'll get little, decoration sprinkles or character related things. So now it's taken on a whole life of its own, but it did just start with a little pineapple sorbet.
Yeah, it seems to have almost like a cult following. There weren't that many lines when we were at Disney World, but there were lines for the Dole Whips. And I've heard that you can get a spiked Dole Whip in a couple places.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's one of my favorites. I have only gotten it at Animal Kingdom in Africa at the little snack stand right as you're walking into the Africa land. And that was with pineapple cider, but you could also get it with rum. So, but I do know that there are spiked Dole Whips around
For
property
all the
now.
adults who need a little bit of help to relax on your wonderful vacation.
Yeah.
So we tried to order it spiked at Magic Kingdom and did not realize that Magic Kingdom, she's laughing. Why are you laughing, Katie? Because Magic Kingdom doesn't serve alcohol except for in the
So
restaurants.
for the longest time, there was no alcohol anywhere at the Magic Kingdom. And when in the backside of Fantasyland, there's Be Our Guest restaurant, which is themed like the Beast's castle from Beauty and the Beast. And that was the first restaurant where you could order beer and wine only while you were sitting in the restaurant. Now, I believe all or most of the table service restaurants in Magic Kingdom, you can drink while you're seated with your meal. But even for the longest time, you could not have wine with dinner, even at Magic Kingdom.
I'm not a heavy drinker, but just wanted to drink in Magic Kingdom because it was a more crowded day. And then quickly
Yes.
realized after having been at the other three parks, it was our final park, realized, oh, this is the one place that we can't easily get that. Now, we did end up finding one when we had booked lunch at the Jungle Canteen. I would highly recommend that restaurant. I found it off of one of Katie's guides. Pretty good value, pretty good quality, and a relatively shorter wait times compared to most of the other places at the Magic Kingdom. We were looking at getting in a few of the others, and because we were so last minute, we didn't have everything booked. So Epcot is definitely the place to go if you want to drink. Although you can also find alcohol served from some of the stands at Animal Kingdom and in Hollywood Studios. You're just going to need to have it at a sit-down restaurant in Magic Kingdom. The last park we've talked about at the beginning, of course, Animal Kingdom, where you worked at. Now, set the scene for someone how the park is. It's all arranged around the Tree of Life, and then there's a couple different lands about it. Obviously, we talked about Kilimanjaro safaris and the animals, but sort of describe the park to someone who hasn't been.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like spokes on a wheel. So the Tree of Life
Yep.
is on an island at the center called Discovery Island. And this thing is huge. It is big, and you can see it from all around the park. And that is probably the most iconic park icon other than Cinderella Castle. So that's in the center. And then you kind of go out and explore these different lands. The original intention behind the park was that very explorative, that you were coming in here, you didn't know what you were going to find. You might find an attraction, you might find some animals. So there are these animal exhibits all around the Tree of Life and even throughout the different lands.
So Pandora is the Avatar land, which is the newer land. And so it kind of all feels like this futuristic Avatar ride. It's where you can go on Avatar Flight of Passage, which is one of those premium rides. And then the other lands are like the Dinosaur Land, which they're about to renovate into like Indiana Jones or something. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so
Or like,
Dino Land will be converted into Tropical Americas, which
okay.
I am very sad to see Dino Land go because it's not the most popular part of the park, but my family really loves it. But I am excited for Tropical Americas because the other two lands are Asia and Africa. So this is continuing with that regional theme, and
We're gonna
it's going to have an Encanto ride where you're going into Antonio. If spoiler, if you haven't seen the movie, Antonio can talk to animals, so that's the tie-in to Animal Kingdom. But you'll be able to journey through the house and see his bedroom with all of these animals that he now shares this really cool room with. And then the dinosaur ride that is currently there will be converted into an Indiana Jones attraction.
I'm sad that they're getting rid of that dinosaur ride because I actually thought it was one of the more fun rides that I enjoyed, even though it's really old. And I remember going on it when I was a younger child. So I'm sure the Indiana Jones ride will be fun, but it just felt like it's such a classic. Okay. That's a bit brief overview of the parks. We could go on all day talking about all the different parks, all the different rides. Katie has itineraries for each of the parks. She's also got a list of things to do, guides to restaurants, guides to budgets, guides to visiting as an adult or visiting as a toddler. Lots of different guides for every different way of approaching a Disney World trip. And if you don't find the information that you need off of one of Katie's guides, you can click the little comment button up at the top, leave a comment, and ask your question, and Katie will get back to you in a few days. So that's a really cool overview of the whole park. Before we go ahead and wrap up this trip planning section, Katie, are there any particular places in Disney Springs or any of the other parks that you think folks should think about as they're planning their trip that you particularly love?
Sure. Definitely keep in mind the two water parks, Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach. They are so much fun and a great way to cool off while still having fun and doing rides and things like that because it gets hot here in Orlando for most of the year. So I definitely recommend it. And if you head over to Disney Springs, which I think everybody visiting Disney should do, it's an entertainment district filled with restaurants, shops, things to do. Definitely head over to Raglan Road. That is my favorite restaurant, has some of my favorite drinks on property.
And Disney Springs doesn't require a ticket to get in. It's open to anyone. So,
Yep. Free parking, free access.
okay, well, let's go ahead and jump into our final segment. I want to ask you just briefly about what's the latest stuff going on in Disney World, because I learned when I was down there are whole YouTube channels that basically give like daily news just about
Yeah.
what's going on in Disney World. There's so much going on, but we recorded this interview a couple weeks before it aired, but we're here in the fall of 2024. What's the latest with Disney?
So the newest attraction is Tiana's Bayou Adventure at Magic Kingdom, which is a reimagining of the Splash Mountain ride. So the big water ride that you head down and get that big splash at the bottom. It is fantastic. I really love the attraction. The music that they've done for it, everything is just top notch. Animatronics, fantastic. We also have those new Lightning Lane passes. So by the time this airs, all of those will be active and ready for use if that's part of your budget. And currently under construction is the latest Disney hotel, which will be a Disney Vacation Club hotel attached to the Polynesian Village Resort.
Very cool. And I hear there's a Monsters Inc. section planned for a couple of years in the future.
Oh, Nate, there is so much coming. We had huge announcements at this year's D23 Expo. D23 is the official Disney fan club, and every other year they host an expo, which has really become their place to announce all of the new stuff coming to the parks. And we have a lot coming up.
Awesome. Anything in particular that you're excited for?
So starting next year in 2025, I mentioned that Test Track will be reopening with that. They're calling it Test Track Reimagined. So same great ride, but a little bit different. We are also getting a brand new nighttime parade called Disney Starlight at Magic Kingdom, which if you've ever had the opportunity to do a nighttime parade at Magic Kingdom, it is just one of those really magical, very Disney-esque things. So I'm very excited about that. We also have a new villain show coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios and two new lounges, one by Spaceship Earth at Epcot, and probably my favorite lounge location, a Pirates of the Caribbean themed lounge coming to the Magic Kingdom. So another place to grab a drink as long as you're sitting inside.
And what are those lounges about?
Basically, they're bars, but Disney likes to be a little more family friendly. So they include some light snack and food items and call it a lounge.
I got it. Okay. Very cool. Well, anything else? Any other words or things that we didn't talk about?
We covered a lot of stuff. I would say if you're starting planning now, this is a great time to be looking at maybe a 2026, 2027 trip to Disney because, like you mentioned, we're looking at a new Monsters Inc. land coming to Hollywood Studios. In Magic Kingdom, we're getting a Villains Land as well as a reimagined Frontierland with two new Cars attractions themed after the Disney Pixar movie. And I would imagine they'll be announcing even more.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Katie. Go ahead and tell the listeners, anyone who's following along, where's the best place to find you online? I know you've got you post some pretty interesting Instagram stories.
Yeah, so all my guides are on Travel Lemming, of course. And then on both Instagram and TikTok, I am Katie and the Sunshine. And yeah, I like to share a little bit of our Disney adventures and having fun around Orlando.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I'm sure we've got lots of other topics that we could cover. Listeners, feel free to leave us a comment if there's something in particular that you want to hear from Katie. So thank you so much, Katie. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if you are planning a trip to Disney World or really anywhere else, you should use Travel Lemming's guides. Travel Lemming has dozens of local experts, just like Katie, in destinations all around the world. Even if Disney World isn't your cup of tea, we have folks in Paris, in London, in San Francisco, in many of the major destinations that you probably want. If you're thinking of traveling somewhere, we probably have a really helpful guide for you. So go to travellemming.com and you can navigate by the search bar right on the homepage. You can go in and click on all destinations in the nav bar, or you can simply type wherever you're going into your favorite search engine and add Travel Lemming to the end. That's how you can find our best guide. So if you have a question about, say, how do I do Disney World on a budget? Put that into a search engine, add Travel Lemming to it, and you'll find Katie's guides on how to save money on Disney World right there. And of course, we also want to remind you that if you want to use the site without those pesky display ads on it, it's one way that we make money is display ads. But if you want to use the site without that, you can get a passport. It's our subscription membership program. It will allow you to access the site without display ads. And as of recording in November 2024, these passports, we're currently giving these away for free with the promo code Lemming. You get 1 year free and you don't even have to enter a credit card. So with your passport, you get access to 1,500 plus guides to destinations all about the world from lots of expert guides just like Katie.
Yes, and like we said, we want to interact with you. And especially when it comes to the podcast, we want to know what you think of the show. If this has been helpful for you, if you have questions about Disney World and beyond, we want to get to know you and hear what you think. So thank you so much for sticking around with us. It's been our pleasure talking to you today on the Travel Lemming podcast, and we will see you on the next one.
Cheers.